Frankenstein is a 2025 American Gothic science fiction film, directed, written, and produced by Guillermo del Toro, based on Mary Shelley's 1818 novel Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus. The film stars Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, and Christoph Waltz. The story follows the life of Victor Frankenstein, an egotistical scientist whose experiment in creating new life, in the form of the creature, results in dangerous consequences. Frankenstein had its world premiere in the main competition of the 82nd Venice International Film Festival on August 30th, 2025. It began a limited theatrical release on October 17th, 2025, with global digital release by Netflix set for November 7th. The film received generally positive reviews from critics, with Elordi's performance receiving universal acclaim.
Hi, I'm Allison.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And this is Queer Cinema Catchup, the podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens. And today we'll be discussing the Guillermo del Toro film adaptation of Frankenstein.
2025.
I personally have strong feelings about Frankenstein in general, as in I love Frankenstein.
And why?
Because it's a very evocative story, of course, the idea of someone creating life from nothing and then the battle of wills that results is very, I think, thematically interesting. But more significantly, I read it in 7th grade.
Mrs. Lehman's class.
In Mrs. Lehman's class. And there was a TV movie version of Frankenstein back in, I believe this would have been 2004, 2005. I think it was October of 2004. We can double check this later. And you could get extra credit if you watched it. So Anna, Joe's sister, came over to my house and we watched it weirdly in my brother. My brother had a TV in his room, and for some reason...
Quickly to catch everyone up, Allison and I were neighbors growing up. We went to the same school. Allison was a grade lower than me, so this is why we overlapped a lot.
Yes, we did.
And then we were roommates, and now we're no longer roommates. We still have a podcast. You're caught up.
What a wonderful summary. But yeah, so Anna and I were holed up in my brother's bedroom, which is like this narrow room, and he had like a lot of dark wood furniture. And then we watched this version of Frankenstein, and it was very thrilling. I feel like it was close to Halloween. I'd be curious if Anna remembers this at all, or if it was only me that felt just so transported by this experience.
Yeah.
And then finally, I also think it was a choice for Mrs. Lehman to assign that to 7th graders. Because I don't know if everybody is going to be ready to read something like that, but I am a literary person. I'm good with books. You know, that was kind of my special skill. And because of that, I feel like reading that book, there were moments in class where I was like, whoa, I'm good at answering these questions that she's asking. And so that was kind of thrilling for me too. You
all read Frankenstein?
Yes. And I don't think it was an abridged version. Isn't that crazy? Did you not read it?
Maybe we're supposed to, and I did not. We talked about it in the class because I specifically remember Mrs. Lehman saying, we were like listing off the characters, and she like showed up a picture, or maybe she was like, and who's the main character? Like, and we're like, Frankenstein. And then she's like, and who is Frankenstein? He's the monster. And then she was like, no, that is incorrect. No, she wasn't that mean, but she was like, it's Frankenstein's monster. And we were all like, oh.
I remember saying that too.
Also, to catch you guys all up, notoriously in school, I would try to not do every assignment that I possibly could to skirt by, and Allison would do every assignment times 10.
And then as adults, I feel like that is not your personality. And I don't skirt assignments, but I do wait until the last minute. So maybe we've like switched personalities a little bit as adults.
But so when you say that you were kind of surprised to have Frankenstein being read in a 7th grade class, are you saying that you think like the themes are too heavy for that age group, that they won't comprehend them? Or do you mean like, because when I think of like the only reason why I would maybe not have people, I've never read Frankenstein also, so I don't really know what it's like, but my assumption is I don't think the themes would be too heavy for 7th graders. More so, I just like don't know if a 7th grader would be able to comprehend even what they're reading.
That's kind of more what I mean. Okay. I think kids that age actually are craving stories that ask big questions because they're trying to figure out what they think about life in the world, and it's the prime age for that kind of literature. But yeah, it was published in 1818, so the language is of course going to be very different from what kids are used to. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder, I mean, we were in a very small, we only had 50 children in our class and probably only 25 right, in each classroom at a time.
Yeah.
Maybe this wasn't such a big discrepancy, but I just think, yeah, there was going to be someone like me who was finding themselves as a lover of literature, and probably some other kid in the class who had the opposite experience. And that probably felt like, as good as that felt for me, I imagine the opposite felt pretty bad.
Seventh grader walking into this, you hear Frankenstein, and it's just probably one of the most like well-known, especially like movie monsters, characters, and probably maybe one of the most famous book characters ever.
I would say so. People probably think it's the monster, but
so,
yes.
Yeah, I would imagine reading this book that you go on thinking it's this high thrill. It's my frame of reference Da Vinci Code type level of
which I was also reading in seventh grade.
I also read that in seventh grade, and I would skip reading. I did not read. I did not like do homework ever. But Da Vinci Code, I started that book. My only experience in grade school is with the Harry Potter series and the Da Vinci Code, where I could stay up till like 2 a.m. because I needed to know what happened next. It just lit up my brain. Like I felt like I was like literally just like it was just unfolding in front of me, and I needed to know what happened next. So that kind of same thrill. You hear Frankenstein, reading that novel, I would anticipate the same thing. But yeah, like you said, it's published in 1818, and so I think you kind of walk into it's much more of a gothic romance.
Yes. Before we talk about history, we should talk about the movie in a very overarching way, and if we're just a yay or a nay.
Okay, I'll go first because I'm a little in suspense because I actually don't know how you feel. I am a hesitant yay.
Ooh, I like the qualifier. Say more.
I think this movie achieved visually, performance-wise, story-wise to a degree. It was all like I thought really well accomplished, but there's something about Guillermo del Toro where I don't know. I think it's just basing like purely off Pan's Labyrinth, where I always think he's going to take it to the next level, and he always does these like these like fairy tale story type monster tales, and I just felt like it was I've never read the original text, so I don't know how true it is. I'm sure it changed significantly from the story. But there was just something I walked out being like, wow, this is really impactful, but I was still left wanting. And there was something about the ending that felt really rushed to me.
I agree.
I just feel like this movie was like all like building to something, and we'll talk about it, just how I was also impressed by how it's like a story within a story,
Yes, which is true to the book. That part is
okay. Oh, interesting.
True. The framing, the ship captain, that's all real.
And so it's like doing all this like building the foundation, building this really interesting story where we're getting these characters, and then it gets to like the crescendo, like coming to the end. It's like, okay, what is this all meant? And then it's like, oh, that's all solved. You do this, I do this. Let's all on our way. And I was like, what? Like you just set up this whole movie and you're rushing the ending,
and that's it.
Yeah, so the ending felt a little rushed to me, and then also there was nothing that surprising to me, and I think that's and it's hard for me to be a critic and a judge on this because I just am in my mid-30s. I'm no longer a child, and I've watched just like a ton of movies.
Yeah,
so it doesn't feel fresh in that element, but I still give it a yay because I don't think it needs to necessarily be fresh per se. Like it still has like Guillermo del Toro twist, but I still was, left wanting a little bit at the end. So that's why I'm a little hesitant. But again, it just felt like a big, booming gothic movie. So I really appreciate it and love it for that.
Okay, this is so fascinating because I'm going to steal your language a little bit. I think I'm a hesitant nay. And hesitant because I do recognize, yes, it's a sweeping story. You're definitely put into the world of the story, etc. But I don't know. I did read basically, I don't like the changes that were made. And usually, I was telling my mom about this, and usually my mom is very anti any change to any book in a film, even if it makes more sense in a movie. She'll be like, why did they do that? I'm like, well, because it's a movie, so we need to visually see it. She'll be like, that wasn't in the book. No, I don't like the movie. I don't like the movie. Like, that's kind of her approach. And I'm not usually like that. I usually like when there are changes. But I was telling her how I didn't like the changes that were made. And she's like, oh, you're becoming like me. You're becoming like me. I'm like, okay, maybe. But just from the very beginning, I had reread the first maybe 10% of Frankenstein. And at first I was excited because the captain of the ship going to the Arctic or Antarctic, what is the difference?
I don't know.
The North Pole.
It's the North Pole, yeah.
The North Pole can refer to several different locations, most commonly the geographic North Pole, the northernmost point on Earth, where the Earth's axis of rotation meets its surface, located in the Arctic Ocean. The South Pole is the southernmost point, Antarctica, which actually, this makes sense. Antarctica is south, Antarctica.
And Arctic is north.
Yes.
Is one a body of land that's frozen and then one's a body of water that's frozen?
Yes. The Antarctica is a continent, unlike the Arctic, which is an ocean. So there is no, maybe there's small landmass in the Arctic, but it's not a big landmass. Oh, I feel like I really learned something.
Yes, so did I. So the Arctic, aka the North Pole, that's where they are. And that's the setting of this movie.
Yes.
Where it starts off.
But yes, so that part I was like, okay, this is really true to the book. They're going to use the framing device. I really love that. But then the creature appears. Okay. And that's true to the book. They see a strange silhouette on a dog sled in the distance, and they're concerned and frightened. But the creature doesn't have, as far as I remember, now I haven't gotten all the way to the end of the book, but the superhuman strength and screaming that was going on, I was like, is this a Marvel movie? Like, that really annoyed me. Really annoyed me. I cannot explain to you. Because it was like, why is this? Is this just because it's a movie and you need to have action and fire and yelling? It really angered me. In fact, talking about it, I'm seeing how angered I am by it. And then from there, everything that they did in the beginning of the film to set up this story is pretty much not true to the book. Like, his family was not cruel. His mother does pass away, but his family's not cruel. They're loving.
Frankenstein.
Yes. Mia Goth's character is his adopted sister, actually, and there is a romance story, but it's not like him stealing from the brother.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of strange. And then also in the book, very crucially, and this is the last thing I'll say, he creates life. You don't really see how. That's all kind of pulled more from the movie adaptations of Frankenstein through the year, like the lightning and taking the bodies from the graves. It's really only a couple sentences. Like, I created life. It opened its horrible eye. And I was like, what have I done? I left the room. He just abandons the creature immediately, which is still a very cruel thing to do. But seeing the way Frankenstein, as played by Oscar Isaac, treat the creature, the way that he treated him in this film was really hard to watch and very upsetting.
From the very beginning, he's cruel to the monster.
And it's like a babe. He's like a baby, and it's so much more obvious. Like, in the book, it's so much scarier because he flees. He thinks this is a true monster. And then people, I think it's much more suspenseful. Years later, people in his life begin to die mysteriously, and he's like, oh my gosh, it's the creature coming for me. And you don't know anything about the creature's story until after a few of those
deaths.
Yeah, so he does seem like a genuine monster. So then the bait and switch of, okay, now the monster's going to tell his tale is so much more effective.
I didn't realize that happens in the book.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was just really, I didn't like the superhero Frankenstein. I did not like how the abusive, it was, I don't know if it's because I have a dog now. And I was like, how could you treat a little baby, a little innocent creature this way? Like, it was just so upsetting to me. And then, yeah, I think like taking that, giving us so much sympathy and empathy for the creature up front, I think takes away from the suspense of the film.
Yeah. I actually loved the opening. Again, I haven't read the book.
Why was he acting like that? That was ridiculous.
If it's Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, this is coming from someone who like loves Van Helsing. I love just taking these taking more of like the movie monster and then trying to make that a character. And so when it started off there, it just was like so much like adrenaline and it was so exciting. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the slow gothic romance I thought it was going to be. This is not your 1818
Frankenstein.
Yeah. So I was like really excited by that. But then as the movie unfolds, it's like they wanted to have it both ways. Where it's like they do want to. It's like, oh, we're going to take you back. And then so yeah, the beginning now feels really disingenuous. Like, why is he a superhuman Marvel character screaming through the Arctic
that.
On its own? I like really love and appreciate, but yeah, I don't think it blends well. And I don't even think it needs to stay true to the book, but
No, me neither.
It doesn't make sense for his kid. Why does he scream?
Me neither. I think I'm with you on that. If it had just been kind of leaning into this different version of the monster, I could have been okay with that. But the second half of the movie, minus the fact that they took out some key characters. So for example, the wedding night scene does happen, but it's Frankenstein getting married to Elizabeth, not his brother. And it's happened after Frankenstein actually genuinely tries to create a creature companion for Frankenstein, but then he becomes panicked thinking he's in the lab trying to do it. And he's like, wait, what if I do this? And then they can create life too. And then what have I done to the human species? I can't do this. So he abandons the task. And then the monster says it's very, very creepy, says to Frankenstein, well, I'm going to be with you on your wedding night. And I don't remember how much time elapsed, but I think it's a long period of time. And he kind of feels like, okay, maybe it's going to be fine. He doesn't tell Elizabeth what's going on. And then on the wedding night, he breaks in and murders her.
With the monster kills?
Yeah, Elizabeth. On purpose. So he's much more morally ambiguous, I would say.
But so all these people, you were saying, I want to connect the dots a little bit in the story, because you were saying that Frankenstein creates the monster and then almost immediately abandons the creature, thinking that he's this horrible monster. And then people start dying that he hears of throughout his life, of people he knew. And then you said that he was worried that the monster was doing this. And is it confirmed that the monster killed these people, or is it still ambiguous in the novel?
So at the beginning, it's kind of Victor Frankenstein telling the story. And so he's telling it chronologically, so he doesn't know. But then when the creature begins to tell his tale, you kind of find out what happened. So basically, the truest part to the book is the cabin portion. So Frankenstein abandons him. He's alone. He teaches himself how to walk. Eventually, he finds this cabin. He's able to hide in the walls and learn how to read. What's different about that, though, is the blind grandfather is being read out loud to all of these famous texts. So he's also getting this like kind of deep education into what humanity is like and their philosophies and their pitfalls and all of that at the same time. And then he does connect with the blind man as it happens in the movie, but instead of there being bizarre angry wolves, which I actually thought was real or true to the book, and then I found out it's not. The family comes home, is disturbed, and kicks him out, and then he saves a little girl who's drowning. I don't know if it's the same girl from the family. And then the father finds them, thinks that he's attacking the little girl, and shoots him. So he kind of is like, okay, even when I'm a kind person, like I'm trying to be kind to this man, the family rejects me. I try to save this girl. I'm attacked. He kind of realizes he's going to be forever alone. And that's when he goes to Geneva to try and find Victor. And this is when the stories kind of link back up again. But it's still, Victor doesn't know any of that's happened. So then he hears that his younger brother, who's a young child, has been killed. And he's like, oh, maybe it's the creature. Which it was, because the creature kind of is coming there to ask Victor, can you make me a female companion? I'm going to be forever alone. Stumbles upon William. He's had all these bad experiences. And he's sort of like, oh, you're related to Victor. I'm going to kill you. And that's kind of when he becomes more morally gray, I would suppose. But Victor hears about it, thinks it's the creature. Is like, I can't tell anybody that because that sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. I can't. And also makes me look kind of bad. But this other servant in their family, Justine, who everyone is beloved, gets blamed. And ends up being executed for the crime, even though it was really the monster.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And then I think that's when finally the creature and him have a conversation that he finds him and is like, you have to make me a female companion. They go to a laboratory. He's like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make the female companion. And then he's like, oh no, what if they can have children? This is not a good idea. He destroys the female companion. And then the creature murders his best friend and says, I'll be with you on your wedding night.
Which is haunting. I wonder why they changed that.
I don't know, because I think the Mia Goth stuff was kind of the weakest part.
It was. She had
the story.
No character. So Elizabeth in the book, she never meets the creature.
I don't think so. Although I did love those scenes of her with the creature, but I just didn't like her scenes with anybody else.
No.
Because I didn't understand her.
Okay, one scene I really did like is when Victor pretends to be the priest during the confessional.
I did think it was funny, but I also just thought it was so stupid.
It was really stupid. I was like, this does not fit. I thought it was fun. I thought that it was funny that Elizabeth was smart and knew the whole time.
I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to like her. But then I just feel like they just underutilized her.
And then when they're having like that fancy daytime lunch, Victor and Elizabeth start talking like politics. So they start talking about philosophy. And then William exits because he knows that they're going to have like a long conversation. That just kind of annoyed. It felt really fake to me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was like, why? What's going on here? And then they didn't really build upon Elizabeth's character. I guess these are all qualities to show that Victor
sucks.
Like, values intelligence.
Yes.
And that's why he's attracted to Elizabeth. And then that's why he ends up not liking the monster
the creature.
At first because he doesn't find him intelligent.
Of course.
And I do think the movie didn't do it successfully because it was so rushed. But like the whole idea is Victor values intelligence so much. That's like the most important quality to him. And your children, I feel like to a degree, are a representation of who you are. And so Victor creates life. And then to reveal that the creature's kind of dumb, at least from his perspective, he's like, that's why he like immediately has sees no value in the creature, which again shows a lack of emotional intelligence from Victor to immediately lock the creature in a basement. But that's kind of what I say. It was all way too rushed. His like decision making was. I feel like if there was like more time to show, like
I agree with this.
First, Victor's excited. He's like, oh my gosh, I created life. It was successful. I thought it had failed.
He's speak like, one word. This is great.
He can speak already. I'm going to try to teach him. Let's get him some like literature, see how he does. Oh wait, he like doesn't understand this. He's like a child.
He only wants to say my name over and over again.
Yeah, he's a 6'8" giant and he's acting like a child. No, banish you. And then for the
he tries to burn him. Which also wasn't in the book.
Yeah.
What the hell was that conflagration?
Yeah, why he felt obligated to burn down
ridiculous.
The whole Gothic mansion was ridiculous. But yeah, it was, again, speaking to like, I feel like it was way too rushed.
Yes. Okay. I didn't even think, of course, that makes so much sense because I didn't really understand why he was drawn. I actually thought he was drawn to Mia Goth's character because of her humanity. I was like, oh, this is something different. And also, did you notice that his mother is played by Mia Goth too?
No.
Yeah.
What?
She had prosthetics on and she was always wearing a veil. But I was watching it. I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure in the trailer that was Mia Goth. Is her character going to be the mom? Is the mom going to die? That seems like such a waste of Mia Goth. And then I was puzzling this out. I'm like, no, it can't be her. It doesn't look like her. It doesn't look like her. And then there's one scene when she's about to have the baby and she kind of whimpers. And if you watch it again, you'll be like, that's definitely Mia Goth because she has such a distinct voice.
I had no idea. I was like, wow, they really found an actor that looked similar to Mia Goth. But yeah, I did not clock that. Yeah, because for the marketing for this movie too, they show that shot of a woman in the giant like flowing red veil.
Which is, fantastic. That was a great costume. I was very drawn into it. But yes, I think you're right. It was rushed. And I didn't even pick up on the fact that the intelligence might have been what drew Frankenstein in. And also what repelled him specifically from the monster. I think maybe I just found him very hard to connect with as a character. And
Victor.
So, yes.
Yeah.
And so by the conclusion, it's people in my theater applauded after the creature and Victor sort of forgive one another. I did not feel that he should be forgiven or get off the hook that easily.
Because also with that too, I felt like that scene, they like tell the whole story. And then it's back to like present day where they're sharing their stories. And then it's immediately, he asks for forgiveness. And then the monster's like, and now I'll kill you. And then the captain's like, wait, let him free. I just heard his whole story. Everything's fine. It's like, that happened in the span of like 3 minutes. That's like, whoa, let's slow down a little bit. Like, I felt like we needed that. It needed to be its own. I feel like we need to flesh that out a lot more.
This is, okay, I have so many thoughts occurring to me right now, but one, apparently Guillermo del Toro wanted to do 2 or 3 movies to break up the perspectives. I think that would have been excellent. I think if you do one movie of Frankenstein story when he still thinks the monster is evil, I would have been on board. And then, part 2, a whole other movie, you realize that was not the whole story. That would be great and really effective.
I would say, but again, as someone who has not read the book and what got a giant applause from my audience when I saw it, where the captain's like, I just heard Victor's side. And then the monster's like, you've heard his side. Now let me tell you mine.
Oh,
and
people applauded.
Everyone applauded. And it was like really, I was like, oh my, wait, we get to hear from the creature's perspective? Like I was excited too. So
that is exciting.
It was I thought that like worked really well. I felt like a lot more empathy for the creature too. So like that was much more interesting to hear. But yeah, I just think like getting Victor's whole like backstory there, he was just a little too like smarmy and know-it-all-y all the time. And then
there was nothing redeeming about him.
And then he wasn't sympathetic to anyone. It was just like,
I'm like, okay, so your dad was mean. A lot of people have mean dads. And
your mom died when she was young.
It's very tragic. I feel bad for you.
Also looked a lot like Mia Goth, and then you fall in love with Elizabeth, but Elizabeth is in love with your brother.
There's always other ladies out there. Why'd you pick her? I think if they had just given him a little bit more, I mean, I guess that's the point, that he's so inhuman and then the creature is so human. But
you have to let that unfold. Like let us arrive to that conclusion.
Yes.
Don't right at the beginning make Victor so odious and unlikable. Even when we meet adult Victor for the first time, when he's at the college, like showing the
presentation,
like even then he's just so. I'm not rooting for this guy. I'm like,
no.
I guess the only reason I'm rooting for, I'm like, yeah, sure, create life so we can get Jake Elordi. I'm excited to see where that goes. But other than that, I was like, no.
Okay, this is reminding me of my second response to your thoughts on the ending. Number 2 is just to give some context of what actually happens in the book. Is that Victor does die. And the creature tells the captain,
at the hands of the creature?
No, I think he just passes away.
Also, it's been a few weeks since I saw this movie. Does the creature hug Victor to death? Do I have that right?
Wait, is that what happened in the movie? I guess so, but I don't think it's like he's killing him. I thought it was just that it was his time to pass away.
How was it his time to pass away? He was perfectly fine. I thought he was just cold.
No, remember there's the grenade. He's like, I don't remember.
Oh, but I loved that shit. So that
annoyed me.
I loved it so much.
It was too superhero. Okay, I don't remember in the book if the creature can't die, but if that is true, it's not so dramatic like that. You know what I mean? It's not like his skin repairs. Or even if that is the case, it doesn't feel. Yeah, he felt like he should be in a Marvel movie, and it just really annoyed me. Okay, this is what happens in the book. Chasing the creature across Arctic ice, Victor nearly dies from exhaustion and hypothermia. He is rescued by Captain Robert Walton, who is leading an expedition to the North Pole. Victor recounts his story to Walton and encourages the crew to continue their expedition. What? Instead, they decide to abandon their journey and turn back. I thought that Victor was trying to warn him that ambition is dangerous. I guess not. I guess that is incorrect. Victor vows to continue chasing the creature, but in his weakened state, he dies aboard the ship. As the ship leaves the Arctic, the creature comes on board. He mourns Victor's death, tells Walton he plans to burn himself on a pyre, and then departs.
I'm pretty sure the creature kills Victor in this movie.
I didn't really pick up on that.
Victor hunts the creature to the northern Arctic, where he fails to kill him with dynamite and is discovered by Anderson's crew. The creature boards the ship, and Victor apologizes for his cruelty before dying. So I guess he did just die on his own.
I think he just died. Yeah, I don't think he murdered him, really.
But
other than the fact that they were chasing each other, and the death.
I feel like that's my own mental.
I like it. I think that's interesting.
My own mental rewriting is. What I love about this movie is it turns then into, and you're saying that Guillermo del Toro is turning this into like a Marvel movie. I think his intention was he was trying to honor like an exciting, old Hollywood movie monster, but there was a little bit too much Marvel superhero-ness in it, definitely.
Because old movie monsters, wasn't it more, the horror is more subtle than that?
Yeah.
It wasn't very subtle. I guess that's maybe what I didn't enjoy. I'm not sure.
But Guillermo del Toro's, he directed Hellboy. Hellboy 1 and 2.
That's true. I guess if I had remembered that going in, I would have probably, that's very true.
And so I think he's trying to bring in some of like the, like Hellboy mixed with like the creatures. What's the one, the water?
Shape of Water. It did feel like, yeah.
Kind of like
I did read
this.
He's
mixing like superhero, mixing the Guillermo del Toro aesthetic, old school Hollywood, like trying to do all that at the same time. And I just don't think it wasn't quite just like Frankenstein himself, was pulling to make the creature. He's pulling from all these different elements, and I don't think they really formed into a cohesive single being.
So that's what a review I read said, that he's been wanting to make this movie since for always, probably. And the review said that this is his version and he is pulling every single part of Guillermo del Toro into the film. And some of that's successful and some of that's not. And so basically that's just what you said. Did you write that article? Are you a critic?
Hello. Yeah. That's why I'm hesitant. Yay, is I think that there's a really good movie in here, which I have to say maybe cut down a little bit on Victor's backstory in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Give a little more time to make us really feel for Victor, and then I'd actually feel something when he dies at the end, because I think it was really interesting is Victor creates life. The monster, or the creature, I think is more appropriate, not the monster. The creature, towards the end, all he wants is to actually die, like have the ability, like all humans, to die, but he can't die. That's like kind
and
of
he can't have the companion because
and
Victor
he can't have the
refused.
companion. So that's all really dark, and I really like that. And so then at the end, for like Victor to be the one that dies and the creature to live on and try to like figure out what his existence is, I think that's all really interesting. But it's just, all too rushed. And like the backstory, it's like that's that gives us like some context, but I just like I don't need to go so in depth.
I think that's what the book is so successful. Like that's only like 2 chapters, maybe 20 pages, and then the rest is what happens after.
Yeah,
and I think that's more effective.
Also, is the character the man who funds
not in the book? Not in the book.
That was a little ridiculous. That got
was a little crazy. And also,
Campy, on the night of the creation, you can create life more than once, can't you? Why does he decide that night? They already have the body all set up, the machine set up, the contraption set up. Why do you decide that night? They actually, let's replace the body. You're going to put my body in there. Like,
I thought it was his brain. That's what I thought he wanted to do.
Oh.
Because he was dying of syphilis, which was a cool reveal. Because he basically says, I'll fund this for you, and maybe one day I'll ask a favor.
But then Victor immediately was like, nope, I'm not going to follow through on your favor. I love that.
That was my favorite part. I was like, okay, I like you more.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even know what the favor is. I'm going to say no. And I was like, I like this.
And then he does it again when he's like, I'm dying, put me in there. And he's like, no. And he runs away. But my thought about this was, okay, why didn't Victor just say yes, put him under anesthesia or something, and then go do what he was going to do, wake him up and say, no, we'll do you another day?
Because the only reason that they even had that is so then they could get into like an actiony fight, which again, I don't mind. But if we had like a little more insight, if it didn't feel so, again, it felt like really rushed. Like what? Like,
yes.
All of a sudden it's like, oh, he's actually a bad guy. It's like, well, we kind of already sensed that something.
We sensed something was amiss. Because why was he
funding this whole thing in the first place? And then so like leads to the fight, which then damages the machinery, I guess is like it damages the machinery, like because he falls, something happens. And then so when the electricity hits the machine, Victor thinks that it actually failed, that he didn't come to life. So then we get the dramatic reveal the next morning.
That was creepy.
Which
I liked that part.
I liked that too.
Effective.
But then again, all too rushed. Like Victor immediately is like, you can only say my name. That's the only thing you could do to the dungeon with you.
He was so mean. He was hitting. It was truly abusive behavior. And I found it, I really think it's because I have Archie now. Like I can't imagine treating a helpless creature this way. Like it is.
No.
It really made me feel uncomfortable. And I feel like I left the movie and I had a really bad feeling. And I really think it was those scenes that messed me up. But one more thought about the ending. The idea is that the creature is so hideous that no one will ever understand or accept him unless they are blind.
Which, in the movie, he's not that hideous.
No. He's still Jacob Elordi. And yes, he looks dead. And maybe he needs a different haircut. But I think...
I kind of like, it was like really unusual. I liked it for that. Like the long hair, I was like, oh, like gothic hair on the creature.
Apparently, and then when I was reading the book, that's actually, I didn't know that's actually a fact from the book. He has long flowing hair.
Also, Jacob Elordi, giant. Did you know that originally Andrew Garfield was cast in the role as the creature and dropped out 9 weeks before? 9 weeks before?
That's dropping out at the last minute.
Yeah. But also it's hard to picture because I don't know if Andrew Garfield, he isn't as tall as Jacob Elordi. And I thought the towering amount, I thought was really effective.
I think that was very effective because you're very aware that he's a helpless creature who is gigantic and could harm you on accident.
I also love how the scripts, it was kind of a ridiculous line, how they need to make note, they're like, we need to find long limbs with lean, long muscles. I'm like, okay, like we know you're casting Jake Elordi. I don't know if we need that. I don't know if you need to say that.
We can just see it. We can just see it. Yeah, I felt like there was just another world where Victor's like, you know what? I can help you now. We've said our apologies. Let's do a Princess Diaries transformation so that you can live in society.
Let's have a dialogue here.
Let's make you look pretty. People will love you.
Yeah.
You got a heart of gold. You can talk now.
It doesn't make the whole setup of how they end up with the captain and the whole conflict there.
I mean, yes.
If everything's going right.
There's really no way that could happen. It's more just the casting of, he was amazing from an acting point of view, but because he's so beautiful,
yeah, it
just didn't quite work for me.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I think
that surprising that Victor wasn't like, you could be a model.
You might be dumb, but you are pretty.
You might change Victorian fashion sense. What age period is this? The time it was written in 1818, is it set in 1818 or is it of a time before?
Let me look at the book. It's set in the 1700s, the book. But I think the most fun fact is that a lot of people consider Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to be the very first science fiction novel.
Which I could have this wrong, but I think I learned it in Mrs. Lehman's class. She probably shared the same information with you. Didn't Mary Shelley do it with a bunch of other writers and it was a competition on who could create the scariest
ghost story? Correct. Or the best. Yeah. Yes.
And so I don't even know who the other competitors were because...
Oh, I can tell you all about that.
Really? Oh, yeah. I'm excited to get into it.
They're the romantics. So often we talk about the beats, but today we're going to talk about the romantics.
Is Charles Dickens like writing A Christmas Carol as Mary Shelley's writing Frankenstein? A
Christmas Carol, 1843. So no, this is what I think happened. I think it goes the Enlightenment is the end of the 1700s. Then it's the Romantic period, which is
Enlightenment, is that the focus on like Christian
reason?
Oh, but is Christianity tied to that also?
I don't think so. I think it's more French Revolution, rational thinking. I feel like you're asking me the hard-hitting questions.
I'm really curious.
I did some research. Here, let me pull up my thing here.
We're live researching.
The Romantic movement was 1780s to the 1830s. It was a broad cultural and artistic revolution emerging in the late 18th century, so the late 1700s. Largely, so I was wrong about when the Enlightenment was. Largely in reaction to the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason, science, and order. Instead of celebrating logic, the Romantics turned toward emotion, imagination, individuality, and nature as the highest sources of truth and beauty. Major figures in British English literature: William Wordsworth, Samuel Tyler Coleridge, Lord Byron, Percy Shelley.
Why does Lord Byron sound familiar?
Because he's a very, very famous poet, writer, who also had a notorious personality. He was kind of rebellious.
Is Lord Byron in the story, like the story of Mary Shelley? Is it Lord Byron and Mary Shelley kind of like the two heads of like, let's compete to see who could write the scariest?
It was Lord Byron's idea to do the contest. So yes, John Keats, Mary Shelley, and then Percy Shelley is a poet who is Mary's husband.
So they're all considered romantics.
Yes.
And you're saying Mary Shelley's husband was also a writer.
Yep.
And then
I don't know if you noticed that the film ended with a quote for Percy Shelley.
Oh, I don't like quotes in movies.
I do, depending on the context. All right, but let me just tell you a little bit more about the Enlightenment. They viewed human nature as rational, logical, capable of improvement through reason. Because this is kind of what Frankenstein is reacting against. Main values: order, reason, logic, scientific inquiry, progress, optimistic belief in rational progress, and human perfectibility. Nature is something to study and master. We can control it scientifically. In art, we want clarity, balance, harmony, classical ideas. In society, everything should be like democracy, equality, human rights, rationality. And then for religion, to answer your question, often deist or skeptical, emphasis on reason and morality. And so I don't know if you remember this, but Thomas Jefferson was a deist, I think. And I basically think it's sort of like an agnostic, which would have been a little bit controversial at the time because of, Okay. And then the thinkers are people like Locke, Newton, Rousseau, Voltaire, all those guys.
And thinkers are of the Enlightenment period.
Yes. But then we get the Romantics who are like, actually, humans are emotional. We're imaginative. We're complex. We're often driven by passion and instinct. We are skeptical of reason alone. We believe in mystery, emotion, and the sublime. there's a living spiritual force out there in the world and in nature that animates us all. We can't understand it. In art and literature, everything should be spontaneous. It should be about expression, intensity, imagination. And in society, it should be personal freedom, rebellion, individual consciousness over conformity.
Yeah, so it's like interesting. We're seeing Victor being raised of this like logic and reason and can't have like an emotional response even when his mother dies, even though it like very affected him. And then with the creation of the creature, it's like both the Enlightenment period and the Romantics kind of merging together. The reason, but then it requires the fantasy of, can I create life myself?
Well, I feel like it's Victor taking the Enlightenment to the extreme of, oh, I can control nature absolutely, so much so that I can create life and master it. And then the romantic part of the book is, well, you think that, but you're wrong.
But so then were Romantics, was there kind of was it a pendulum swing where it's more back to religion? Because in this movie, it made a point of the professors at the college were like, this is against God. Like they were very against it.
I actually think, I'd have to look at the text again, but I actually think that it's more of a Guillermo del Toro edition, wrinkle, because a lot of the reviews are mentioning the Catholic influence on the film.
Yes.
And so
I listened to one short interview with Guillermo, and he, was raised Catholic, and he was very influenced and kind of incorporated this into this movie, where I would assume in the book it wasn't so much focused on religion.
I'm sure like there were references to God and how he's playing, because Victor Frankenstein is playing God and all of that, but I just don't recall. And also the Romantics were generally pretty rebellious people.
Okay.
So it goes Enlightenment, Romantic period, Victorian era, 1830 to 1900. And if Romanticism was idealistic, emotional, visionary, Victorian era is like realistic, moral, socially conscious. We're going to talk about society, industry, morality, science, empire. I mean, if you think about Charles Dickens, I feel like that, he is talking about this is what life is like, and I'm going to show you all sides of it and kind of expose social ills. What else do they care about? Details, socially aware, often moralizing, often nostalgic, nature contrasted with the industrial life that they were now living. The philosophy was focused on duty, respectability, progress, and moral order. And the representative writers are people like Dickens, Tennyson, the Brontes, George Eliot.
And what is their cohort called?
The Victorian era. But I feel like the Victorian, that was the Victorian period. I don't feel like the Romantics are called the Romantics because they were such big personalities and they all knew one another. I don't know if the Victorian era writers are really thought about in that same way.
Got it.
It's more like it was the Victorian age, and here are the writers who were emblematic of that age. And I would say for the Enlightenment, probably the same thing. Like they weren't calling all the philosophers the Enlightenment men or like the Enlightenment dudes.
Well, I assume with all these eras that it's after the fact. They
yes.
Kind of,
for sure. Well, I don't know. I feel like the Romantics may have been kind of almost like the Beats or like the Brat Pack. Like people knew who they were,
But I don't think like Mary Shelley was like, me and all the Romantics are meeting up.
Oh, probably. Well, yeah, that probably not.
But that's really interesting. Wow.
The origin story of Frankenstein is that all of them convened at this house in Geneva in 1816. And Lord Byron's like, we should have a contest to write the scariest story. And Mary Shelley won with the beginnings of Frankenstein. And she later said, it all came to me in a dream. But people speculate that's because, again, she was very aware that a woman saying I came up with this disturbing idea would be seen very negatively.
So how would she win? Should she have to write the whole thing? Or she's like, here's my idea. They're like, you won. How much you get what you won?
I think they were just like this group of like teens and early 20-somethings who love books and reading and talking about big ideas. And they were all just kind of hanging together, came up with this idea. And then they just were like, yours is the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Satisfaction is probably what she won.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear that this is also like arguably the first piece of science fiction.
I agree. I think that's so cool. And that it was a woman. And to me, that actually makes a lot of sense that it would be a woman
that would come up with it.
That would come up with science fiction. Or that feels right to me.
But yeah, science fiction, because it is, we've been talking about a lot like the Enlightenment period and the Romantic period. Like that's kind of a merge of the two, right? Where it's like the Enlightenment is more of that the science-based, and then the fiction of the Romantics, it's the two meeting together. So it's interesting how that came together.
I agree.
And then I also just wonder too, like like the monster / creature, like what? Because this is like, is it classified as gothic horror science fiction? Gothic?
I think if I had to pick words, I would say, yeah, gothic horror science fiction.
Like, so this is the first piece of science fiction, but was there gothic horror before
I think so, yes. I think gothic.
Like Dracula and all that.
But gothic fiction, sometimes referred to as gothic horror, is a literary aesthetic of fear and haunting. The name of the genre is derived from the Renaissance era use of the word gothic as a pejorative term meaning medieval and barbaric, which itself originated from Gothic architecture and in turn the Goths. The first work to be labeled as Gothic was Horace Walpole's 1764 novel The Castle on Toronto, later subtitled A Gothic Story. Subsequent 18th century contributors included Clara Reeve, Anne Radcliffe, William Thomas Beckford, and Matthew Lewis. The Gothic influence continued into the early 19th century with romantic works by poets such as Samuel Tyler Coleridge and Lord Byron, novelists like Mary Shelley, Walter Scott, also frequently drew upon Gothic motifs as well. Also continued to be used in Victorian literature, like Dickens and Bronte, Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne. I kind of feel like in reading that, it's just like we humans like spooky stuff, you know, and it's been around for a while.
Yeah, I just never even heard of these books, and how did they not really stand the test of time as much as...
I've heard of some of them, but I think it's just because of being an English major. I also just think Frankenstein is think about that idea and the idea that nobody had written a story like that. I mean, I guess Prometheus, right? It's called subtitled The Modern Prometheus. And the myth of Prometheus is just the guy who gave fire to the Titan who gave fire to humans, even though Zeus said no, who ruined us. And then he was punished by being, laid out on the rock, and the eagle eats his liver every day. That myth is about creating human life, or there's the Adam and Eve creation of life, but there's never been an idea of a human being creating life with science. It's disturbing. I can see why it took off.
I'm also reading that another piece in this competition that has stood the test of time pretty well is not only Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, but also John Polidori wrote The Vampire, which was based on a story fragment Lord Byron himself had started and abandoned.
Oh.
Polidori's work is the first to portray the vampire as a sophisticated, aristocratic seducer, the direct inspiration for Dracula and all modern vampires.
That's so cool.
Oh, John Polidori was Lord Byron's doctor?
He had like an eating disorder, Lord Byron. I remember that being a fact about him. I think he was very preoccupied with his health, but didn't take very good care of his health. He's really interesting.
Lord Byron.
Yeah, if we were going to do an episode, we should do it on Lord Byron.
Let's do it more on him. And then also it's saying the terror versus horror and how Frankenstein used both was kind of like a new concept where you have the terror of Radcliffe Style, who wrote The Mysteries of Udolpho, which is like about psychological fear and dreadful anticipation of something horrible happening. And then horror, which is like Lewis, who wrote The Monk, which is like shock, revulsion, and disgust. You feel like these horrible things. And just you describing the plot of the book of Frankenstein is like these two mergers of it together. The horror of like this creature, like different body parts coming together. And then the terror of, and the creepiness factor of Victor, like existing in the world, feeling hunted. All these people are passing away suspiciously. Agreed. And then the threat of, which I cannot believe they did not do this in the movie. It was such a good line. I'll
be with you on your wedding night? Yes, that's so good.
That is like the strongest piece of dialogue. How could you not take that? It's sitting right there for you.
I remember the book is that it didn't happen. It wasn't like he got married 6 months later. It was years later. So this, the idea of somebody telling themselves, actually, it's going to be fine. That cursed book I signed, it's not going to come back to haunt me. I'm going to totally get off scot-free. No, you're not. They're coming for you. Like I love that kind of anticipation.
That sense of like dread of something, like when you're...
And denial. Dread and denial.
Do you ever get this where it's like everything, your day's going fine and you're like, wait, there's like something amiss that I'm like really concerned about. What is that thing? And then you remember whatever that thing is. And it kind of like you're like, oh,
ruined your whole day.
That's looming over me. Yeah. A movie that I feel like accomplishes really, really well, a modern movie, within the last 10 years, is It Follows.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
after I saw that movie, like this idea of like dread, something that's so terrifying just within the concept itself, that you could be like anywhere in the world and just knowing that something is like coming after you. And you could be in the Arctic, you could be the Antarctic, you get as far away as possible, but just like know there's like something coming for you is just so like dread. It really haunted me. And
now that you say that, when we watched that movie, It Follows, I think I might have said this reminds me of Frankenstein.
No way.
I think so. I think maybe.
It probably pulls from that element. And then I guess the kind of tragic idea of it too is like the idea of something of death. Like death is coming for us all, but we all exist. We all like live our lives. We all have these experiences as if we pretend it doesn't exist and that it isn't coming for us. And why some of us like books and movies so much is because we get to plug into all these different lives that maybe we'll never get to experience. It makes us think things that are bigger than ourselves, which is also why science fiction is actually one of my favorite genres, because it allows me to sometimes experience a future that maybe I'll never be able to participate in. Like it's all very like exciting. But this reminds me, this movie has like 3 Ds. When I walked out, I was like 3-letter D words that come to mind. And I feel like this movie is about desire and what Victor feels for creating life. And then also like the wanting of desiring Elizabeth, who also is a stand-in for his mother who passed away when he was very young. Mm-hmm. And then disappointment, which is he creates life, is disappointed with what he created, does not see it as intelligent as himself. Also the disappointment that he cannot be with Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And then also the last D I feel like is like death. And so Victor's the one who creates life, and in a way is also raises questions of, okay, humans have the capability to create life now. What does that mean? Like, are we going to start like reanimating people? Is the creature using the brain like the benefactor? We never get that answer. Is the brain that the creature has, is that the brain of the person? Like what makes the person? What makes the soul?
Oh.
Which I don't think this movie was really curious about answering that question. And I don't know if the book has that curiosity either.
I think it does. There's a little bit of the soul.
Yeah, something. But yeah, the last D of death is like Victor creates life. This life, all it wants is to die. And then Victor, who's the creator of life, then dies also. And then if Victor's also, in a way, it kind of makes him God, because we see God as the person that creates life. Like what happens when God dies? Like, I don't know. It's like there's so many more like interesting questions that I don't think this movie, you kind of have to like sit. It's way too rushed, so you can't really think those. But those are kind of like the 3 Ds that I had coming out.
I like that. The 3 Ds.
Desire,
I see that.
disappointment, and death.
I could see that. And then also I want to tell you about the history, because what you were saying about how it's so interesting that Victor, the giver of life, passes away, and then the creature, the son, has to live on because of Mary Shelley's history. I think you will find it adds to that thematic resonance a little bit. She did die kind of young, like in her 50s, but there was just a lot of death that surrounded her, basically.
And how does the French Revolution tie into all this?
Well, actually, that is such an excellent question, because it is very close to Mary Shelley's life story. I don't know if you know this, but Mary Shelley was the daughter of a man named William Godwin, who was a political philosopher, and then Mary Wollstonecraft, which is a very famous feminist writer and thinker who wrote something called A Vindication of the Rights of Women, which I have read in school. And she unfortunately passed away, I think like a couple days after Mary's birth. And so she didn't know her, which, okay, and I'll just quickly say for the audience, not only did Mary's mother pass away when she was an infant, Mary Shelley ended up having, I think, 3 children pass away, and 1 as babies, and 1 miscarriage that was so severe. She almost died herself, and then she ended up having 1 child. And I think all of that really, if you take that lens and you put it onto Frankenstein, I think is really important. And also Percy Shelley died, and her... Okay, oh my God, there's so much to talk about. Should I start with Mary's mom or talk to you about Mary's adult life?
Let's hear about Mary's mom.
So basically, she originally became well known because she was very radical and in a negative way during her life, where she got involved with a married man. She went to Paris during the French Revolution and was involved in a bunch of radical circles, and had a child with an American diplomat who was there named Gilbert Imlay. And she lied and said, "Oh, I'm married to Gilbert, so my child is legitimate." But then later on, I think he maybe dies, or I don't quite remember what happens to him. But later on, when she kind of hooks up with William Goodwin and they also conceive a child, they decide to get married. And it comes out that she was never married in the first place, which was a huge scandal. And then sadly she died. But yes, she was very important in that she focused on education equality, the rational capacity of women. In the Vindication of the Rights of Women, she argued that women aren't naturally inferior the way that we see them to be. It's only because they don't have education and opportunities, which was obviously a radical thought at the time. And she very much supported the French Revolution. And there's like a way of looking at Frankenstein where you can kind of see Victor as representing the French monarchy and the creature representing the downtrodden people, or you can kind of read that into it because basically Mary didn't know her mother, but when she met Percy Shelley, side note, Percy Shelley was from a very rich family, but had very radical ideas, like the fact that he should give all his money away. His family didn't like this. They're like, we're not going to really support you while you're being so terrible and supporting these radical ideas. He meets Mary Shelley, who loves these radical ideas. She's 16, he's 20, and he's also married. And they run away together with, I think, Mary's half-sister or something like that. And then, the Byron comes along. He's also kind of hooking up with a lot of people and causing a lot of, scandals and things like that. And then Percy's wife commits suicide. And that's when they get together and they get married, Percy and Mary Shelley.
Oh my gosh, a lot of crossing over, a lot of people mixing together. And then so it sounds like Mary Shelley kind of repeated in the footsteps of her mother in a way, because you were saying her mother had an affair with a married man. Did they have a child together?
Yes, Mary.
With the married man?
Oh, yes, French. Yes, Fanny. Fanny Imlay is her name, I think.
Is Mary's older half sister?
Yes.
And then
but she ends as more half siblings because her father gets remarried. It's actually very sad. Her father gets remarried and the wife doesn't like Mary Shelley. And so she doesn't treat her very well. And that probably is what motivated her to run away in part.
And then Mary Shelley ends up running off with a married man. And then they stayed married until Mary's death. Until
Percy drowned in 1822.
Drowned?
Pretty much what happens to Mary is that
this is after the publication of the book.
Yeah, 1822. And a lot of people thought she wouldn't put her name on the book initially because she was worried. It was such a strange, bizarre, dark tale for a teenage woman to write about who had children, that she was afraid that her children would be taken away from her. And afterward, when it came out, she actually edited the text to make it more palatable and less creepy. And also, Percy's name was on there as an editor. And so for years, people were arguing that, Percy Shelley is this great writer. He probably really wrote it, until they analyzed it later on and they found the text like where his edits were. And they're like, actually, he did even less than we thought he did. So it was more like a cover for this woman writing this scary novel. But basically, Mary's life was just horribly tragic in that she was surrounded by people who died. Like her children, her husband, her mother, and her very last book was called The Last Man. I think it was, it's not her last book, but one of her last books was called The Last Man, and it was about, I think, the very last human, also kind of science, sci-fi in some way. Let me look it up.
I mean, that's just kind of that time, though. Like, I don't think you'll ever get used to death, but I just think death was more in the air. Like, so many people had a lot of children under the assumption that some of them would pass away. It's kind of like horrific, right?
I mean, absolutely. But it does seem like she specifically had, like I think I read that her father died when he was like in his 80s or 90s, and she died at 59. And you know what I mean? Like there was a chance you could live a long time, but she was just happened to be around a lot of people that died young. Yeah. But yeah, The Last Man is one of the first dystopian novels.
Is that also a famous movie?
It might be. Tell me if this sounds familiar. The Last Man is an apocalyptic dystopian science fiction novel by Mary Shelley, first published in 1826. The narrative concerns Europe in the late 21st century, ravaged by the rise of a bubonic plague pandemic that rapidly sweeps across the entire globe, ultimately resulting in the near extinction of humanity. It also includes discussion of the British state as a republic, for which Shelley sat in meetings of the House of Commons to gain insight to the government system of the Romantic era. The novel includes many fictive allusions to her husband, Percy, by Shelley, who drowned in a shipwreck 4 years before the book's publication, as well as their close friend, Lord Byron, who had died 2 years previously. And I'm pretty sure it's about the only human left, or someone who thinks that they're the only human left.
It's called The Last Man.
Yes. Wow, I've been looking at my notes, and so I didn't see your amazing stance, how you're sitting on your couch.
Just
it looks
cozy.
so comfy.
And so you were sharing all this history. I was like, I have to curl up and listen to your storytelling.
Basically, there's so much to say about the Romantics that we could probably do a
whole episode on it.
We can't, describe everything, but if you are interested, it's such a rich, the writing's really cool. The people are really interesting. Mm-hmm. They were non-conventional at a time, I don't know, being a little bit more rebellious back in the day. People were much more scandalized by it. Yeah. So I think,
maybe there's something, maybe there's a romantic that we could dive into sometime at some point.
Probably Lord Byron.
Maybe a little more queer focused.
I think Lord Byron was possibly bisexual.
Okay. Because I will say, I know this isn't part of the blueprint at this moment, but would you, yes, the creature and queerness and how we find our place in the world, I'm sure that's all ties, but to say that this is a straight up queer movie, what would you say?
Well, yeah, I guess, the idea of being othered is very queer. Monsters can be very queer.
Right, that's kind of our go-to. I feel like we say that when we actually can't really tie any deeper discussion of queerness. Victor and the creature, it would be interesting if it turned into more of what if I created life and and that was my companion could be an element. But in this movie, it was very clear to me much more of a father-son dynamic, not a romantic. But there could be a world where that would have been an interesting interpretation is, can I create my own companion? Or that would have been, something to that degree would have been interesting.
Well, actually, it did strike me, he did not ask, I don't think in the movie, the monster asked for a female companion, which is what he specifically asked for in
the book,
which is why Victor abandons it, because he's afraid to give them the power to procreate. And I'm pretty sure there's a line where Victor in the movie is procreation, he's freaking out about the idea of it. But I don't think the monster said, give me a woman. I think he just said, give me a friend.
Yeah.
And
okay, so unclear if
maybe
the creature might be gay.
I'm into it.
Yeah, and even with, I think that I had much more empathy for the creature, but there still wasn't something, I still didn't walk away from this movie being heartbroken or being
no.
It was a little more, it was a little more the philosophy of this, that kind of, but yeah, I wasn't left thinking about it for weeks after I saw it.
No, I felt mad after.
Mad?
Yeah.
So you gave it a hesitant nay. At one point where you affirm this is a bad movie.
Yes.
Nay.
Up until we get to the part where
what is Archie up to?
So I have a Kong with peanut butter frozen for if he gets really distracted or needs the distraction. But before we started, when I was setting up, I gave him the leftover peanut butter that I was putting in there on the spoon to him. And lately what I've been doing is I just kind of let him keep the spoon. And so he sometimes plays with the spoon.
I can hear the audio of him knocking it over. You looked over but didn't say anything. I was oh, what the hell's going on?
But yeah, I agree. It's not necessarily a obviously queer movie.
Yeah. Do romantics have any ties to queer history also?
I guess the individualism, the focus on freedom, I think yes. And I'm pretty sure Lord Byron, yes, I'm seeing it right here, rumored bisexuality. So yes. And also I found some information that Mary Shelley helped two of her lesbian friends who needed to, I'm forgetting the details, but they wanted to get married. And so one of them posed as a man and she helped them with the paperwork or the passports or whatever they needed to carry out this secret marriage. So she's an ally. Wow. Thank you, Mary.
Is there anything else from the sheet that we didn't talk about?
I guess the Netflix angle, that this is actually a Netflix movie that only came to theaters. That's why it was so hard to find it here.
Okay, so I saw Frankenstein at the Chinese theater a few weeks ago. And there was a period a few years ago where I was going to all these different like movie screenings around LA. And afterwards, Guillermo del Toro would just pop out and surprise the audience and would either be, there was one point, I saw the Pinocchio movie and he came out for a Q&A after that. Okay, that was expected. But then there was some other movie, I can't remember what it was, but it was like a week later. And not a movie that Guillermo del Toro directed, but the director comes out to do a Q&A, and then Guillermo del Toro was the moderator. So I was like, this guy is just showing up for every Q&A talking about movies.
Guillermo, take a break.
So I thought surely for this like opening night premiere in Hollywood of Frankenstein that Guillermo del Toro would do a Q&A afterwards. And the movie plays, sit through the whole credits, and then Guillermo del Toro he didn't show up. So I thought that was kind of hilarious. But yeah, the audience reaction, I thought it was pretty exciting, but there was something about this movie where it just seemed a little, it's no Pan's Labyrinth. It can never live up to that.
Pan's Labyrinth is the best.
Yeah. But I wonder why they chose not to make it a miniseries.
I don't know. I think that would have been great. What could have been? And just like Guillermo del Toro, this is he's been wanting to make Frankenstein for forever. In fact, in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2013, 2014, 2016, 2020, he was talking about how he's going to make this movie.
And he did it. Proud
and
of
he
him.
did.
He talked in the interview that I listened to, he was talking about how they filmed this in the UK. And he's like, I loved filming in the UK so much. I love their sensibilities. How it always feels like a cozy murder mystery at all times, but everyone's in polite society. He's like, I loved it. He's like, I'm thinking, maybe I'll move there one day. And I just I love, it's your Guillermo del Toro. You can do whatever you want. He presented this idea as if it was some unrealistic dream. I was like, if you want to move to the UK, you can move to the UK. You can get a second house in the UK. It just cracked me up. But he was talking about how that Mary Shelley actually, I don't know if any of your research you saw this, but she spent a lot of time in Scotland.
Ah.
And I think that's maybe where she actually wrote.
It was Geneva. Well, I don't know. Okay, Geneva's where she came up with the story, but I don't know where she finished writing it. It could have been
I think she might have been in Scotland. And then, they filmed in the UK. And then that's something that I appreciate too, is I complain about modern movies, how they really feel small to me. And I feel like this movie did a pretty good job of building some sets, even though I could see some of it every now it was a little too VFX heavy, but I did really appreciate the scale and scope of it and having a lot of people and cast involved. But yeah, he said that he actually went to a lot of locations where they shot Barry Lyndon, which is a Stanley Kubrick period piece movie. I've never seen that. I actually need to see at some point. And it's pretty famous.
To the list.
It's pretty famous because they used cameras in that movie that could film in low light settings, so low of light that there's some shots that are only lit by candlelight, which, especially for the technology, I think Barry Lyndon was filmed in the 70s. That's actually really impressive that you could shoot in such low light to only have it lit by candlelight. So
I agree.
So
that's pretty amazing.
Stanley Kubrick, who was always pushing, I feel like, cinema and movies, and I always love watching his movies. I feel the same way about a Guillermo del Toro movies. I always will take time out of my day to watch a Guillermo del Toro film because I feel like he really appreciates filmmaking.
I agree with that. And Pan's Labyrinth is one of my favorite movies.
Pan's Labyrinth is so good. Yeah, whereas I feel like this movie could have done another pass. Give some things, not make the movie any longer, but just rearrange some things. And then that would have given it, I think, a firm yay for me, but still a hesitant yay for me.
I'm going to stick with my hesitant no, but I do appreciate the idea. I love Frankenstein. I'm glad there's another Frankenstein out in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I kept reading different critics saying this is the most faithful adaptation, the one that feels the most like the book. And I guess when you are saying it's bringing to mind these big ideas about desire, death, disappointment, it's it's all there, but I think you're right. It just didn't milk what it had, It kind of let everything go by very quickly, even though it's a very long movie.
Yes.
All those action scenes, I think, could have been gone.
even like all the action stuff, even like the long backstory. I feel like if they had spent more time in the present day and not rushed the creature and Victor and like all the forgiveness stuff, if there had been a really big dialogue heavy scene taking all these themes, taking all this philosophy and really like helping us explore that, I think this would have been a much more successful movie for me.
Even though I'm a hesitant no, I do appreciate this movie exists because there are going to be teens that see this movie.
It's a window in to be like, I'm curious about this. Let me see the original text and watch it. And I feel
exactly. And it's going to be exactly like me in 7th grade watching that made-for-TV movie version, feeling the spookiness come alive for the first time. And
I'm glad you tied that back. So what is that? What is it called?
So it came out in 2005.
I see it, 2004.
Oh, well.
So that makes sense because I think I was in 7th grade in 2000. Parker Posey's in it.
What?
If I have this right.
This is the first time I've ever seen Parker Posey.
Okay, but it says there's a detective. No, I think she did something else.
Frankenstein.
It aired on the USA Network. Oh, I love the USA Network.
I do think it was
October 10th, 2004, intended as the pilot for an ongoing series. The planned show was initially deriving from a concept by Dean Koontz. Wait, Parker Posey is in this. Wait, is this the right?
Okay, so here's the thing. It also could have been a movie.
Frankenstein's holding a scalpel and wearing a modern-looking surgical mask.
No, I don't think so. Because I remember, you know what? It could have been an older movie that was airing on TV.
Oh, because there's one from 1973.
I think that's probably the one that it was. And they aired it on TV, and Mrs. Lehman told us that if we watched it and we wrote, a paragraph about it or something, we would get extra credit. And folks, when there was an extra credit opportunity, even if I already had an A, I did it.
So this is Queer Cinema Catchup, our discussion about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. And you can listen to us on many different podcast streaming formats. You can watch us on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, comment, and maybe send Allison an email at queercinemacatchup@gmail.com on your thoughts about Mary Shelley, the Romantics.
Frankenstein.
And or your experiences with Frankenstein media in your childhood.
Did you also read it in 7th grade?
And watch the same movie for extra credit?
Anna, would you like to email me about your experience?
So please go watch some of our other previous videos.
And if you have movies you want us to review, let us know because we love recommendations.
Yeah.